Kuzlangpo, welcome to Bhutan e-learning project. This is an environmental science lesson for Key Stage 5, that's for classes 11 and 12. Today, we are going to learn about energy conservation and management. By the end of the lesson today, we should be able to explain few concepts about energy efficiency. After that, we should also understand something about green technology and relate it to the conservation of natural resources. And ultimately, we should also be able to apply the principles of the energy conservation to our daily lives. So let us begin. Before we talk about energy conservation, energy management, it is important for us to understand what energy is. We have been studying about energy a lot of time. We have studied about energy in science. However, the concept will differ a little bit when it comes to environmental science. Here, energy means power derived by using natural resources in order to generate heat or other forms of energy which are used for various purposes, like energy used for running an automobile. We use fossil fuel for that. So if you look at example of energy sources, for instance, using fossil fuels to run automobiles. Apart from that, the second example can be use of light. We use electricity for lighting our homes and running various types of electrical appliances. Apart from that, using water to generate electricity is one of the most common form that we see in our country. Now, if you look here, you can see various sources of energy. For instance, nuclear energy, biomass energy, wind energy. Likewise, there are different forms that you can see here. So these are some of the forms of energy and energy sources that we can see around us and that we use in our daily lives. So as I said earlier, we derive energy from natural resources. So let us see what are some of the natural resources and how do we classify them. Generally, when we say natural resources, these are either some form of for producing power. So if you look at generally, energy resources or natural resources are classified into two different groups. On my right side, you have renewable energy. And on my left side, there's non-renewable energy. So what do you understand when I say renewable energy? And what is non-renewable energy? So let us focus firstly on renewable source of energy. So renewable source of energy are those natural resources which doesn't matter however we use it, still we can replenish there during our lifetimes. For instance, solar energy is one good example of the renewable form of natural resource. And second one can be wind energy. Third one can be water. Water is one important resource. And we know, doesn't matter however we use it, it is not going to get over. We are not going to finish it like that. However, if we look at non-renewable energy, then these resources are the ones, if we use them without taking care, then it can prove costly. Which means non-renewable energy sources are those resources which will be finished if they are used at a very high scale. Example, fossil fuels like petroleum products or coal is one best example. These are fossil fuels which are formed by fossilization, which took a lot of time. And if we finish it, we are not going to get that within a short span of time. Now, having understood the energy and having classified them, having classified the natural resources, now let us look at some of the energy sources that are there in our country. So can you think about okay, I know the first thing that came into your mind is hydroelectricity, because we, Bhutanese, our economy is backed by revenue generated from hydroelectricity. So the first source is hydropower. If you look around, there is one organization called DGPC, Druk Green Power Corporation, which is dedicated in harnessing electricity from water. At present, our capacity is about 1,615 megawatts. So that is our energy production, out of which some we use it for our domestic consumption, and what remains, it is exported to other countries. The second form is solar energy. So solar energy, important form. This one technology, generally we call it as solar cell, or let us say solar panel. We derive energy from sunlight, and then the energy as solar energy is converted to electricity, which is stored and later used for different purposes. The third form is biomass energy, and the fourth one, it is wind energy. So please look at the 4 images that are on my right and on my left, which can give you a clear image of 4 different sources of energy that we see in our country. Let us move on now. Let us look at why is there a need for energy sources. We always talk about energy, we talk about exploitation of natural resources for the purpose of driving energy. There's a specific need actually. If you look around, the world is developing. For the development purpose, you see the demand for energy has increased. Once the demand for energy has increased, then the pressure on the natural resources has increased. And because of the pressure on natural resources, there are a lot of environmental issues. That is why we have to learn about energy conservation, green technology, and a lot of topics like that, which help us to be more efficient and ultimately minimize pressure on the natural resources. As we understood a lot of things by now, I'm sure you might have understood and thought about many things, and also might have observed, and then now you might be comparing about things. Now, first thing, let us look at energy efficiency. What is that? Is it something new that you are learning? We have been using a lot of appliances. Are they using the energy supplied in an efficient manner? It is very important to look at it. Energy efficiency here, it means using the same amount of energy to produce more things. Or let us say, if there is a particular task which has been carrying out by one particular appliances, then in order to carry out the same task, if lesser amount of energy is used, then we can say that as energy efficiency. Now, if you look at, with the growing demand of energy, it is a common observation that we have shortage of energy, like shortage of electricity. That's why if we make a shift to more efficient devices, then it is going to save a lot of works. One simple example is the bulb that we commonly use, the incandescent bulb. So on my right, we have incandescent bulb, whereas on my left, we have another bulb which we call as the LED bulb, that is light emitting diode. Now if we compare, the energy used by this bulb here is quite high as it is given in the picture. However, the energy used by the other bulb is very less. And second one, again if you look in the data there, you see the lasting of this particular bulb is very low, whereas the lasting of this particular bulb is very high. So if we shift, instead of using the incandescent bulb, if we shift to LED bulb, then firstly, we can get the same lighting effect by taking in less energy. Other than that, the number of bulbs used will be less, and which can save us from producing a lot of wastes. Now let us look at where can we apply energy efficiency. It is applied worldwide. A lot of developed countries now shift to energy efficient techniques. So there are three basic places where energy efficiency can be applied. The first one is at home, the second one is in the industries, and third one in transportation. Now if you look here, the first one, this is one schematic representation of using the energy efficiency at household level or at home. So if you look at, there are many things given which you may look at. The main thing I would like to stress here is on using products which have more energy star. Products are rated based on the amount of energy they take in and the output. Initially, that type of ratings were not available, but now we can see there are a variety of appliances. We can always opt for the products with high energy star, which means these products are more efficient. Other than that, to improve the energy efficiency at household level, we can always think and plan for houses with better insulation and in general with a plan that saves energy. So as we are done with energy efficiency at household level, now let us look at industries. Are there some ways by which we can apply the principle of energy efficiency in the industries? Can you think about it? Yes, we can. For instance, the first way is, in the industrial processes, there are many byproducts. For example, in some countries, they use coal for producing electricity. So whenever coal is used, the primary purpose is met. They produce electricity. But there is also a byproduct, that is heat energy. If we don't take care about, the heat is dissipated and we lose huge amount of energy. Instead of losing it, we can always use the heat energy produced for heating purposes and heating water, which can be supplied to the entire society. Second one can be transportation. Here I'm talking about internal transportation in the industries. We know there are different types of industries. For instance, let's talk about ferrosilicon. Within one particular factory, products, or let us say materials, have to be transported from one place to other place. And for that also, most of the industries at present use cars or automobiles which are run on fossil fuels. Instead of that, if we shift to transportation system which works on magnet or works on magnetism, then it can minimize the pressure on the fossil fuels, and it is one important approach to minimize the pressure on fossil fuels. Third one is using the principle of energy efficiency in transportation. There's a monk having bicycle. Now if you look at generally, even in and around the towns and cities of Bhutan, we see people using the cars which need fossil fuels for every purpose, especially when moving from town. And when an automobile is used within the town, then the fossil fuel consumption is very high. Instead of that, if bicycles are used, then it will reduce the energy consumption by a lot. Other than that, the second one here is magnetic transportation system. I already used that when I was explaining about internal transportation in factories. We can even use magnetic transportation system within the cities. There are trains which move based on the principle of magnetism. Other than that, if you look on my left, there is an electric car being charged. I'm talking about electric car that runs on electricity, of course. But what is important here? If I am using an electric car, the demand for fossil fuel is reduced. It is not just that. Once I use electric car, emission is almost equal to zero. We have electric cars with zero emissions, and then that will help us curb pollution. And the last figure here is about aerodynamic cars. Using aerodynamic vehicles will minimize resistance, and if resistance is minimized, then the efficiency of that particular vehicle will improve, and it will be something like less input and more output. Now let us look at energy management and energy management system. So what is energy management? Basically, energy management is defined as organized and systematic management of energy use, be it at home or in different organizations. And it helps to create a balance between the energy used and the environment, or it helps in meeting the demand of energy and keeping the environmental conservation in mind. So there are different approaches. However, the main purpose here is to increase energy saving in a systematic approach. So basically, to promote energy management, there's a system called as energy management system, which is primarily aimed at using energy in an efficient manner by adopting to energy efficient devices and equipment. Apart from that, it also promotes the principle of reducing energy wastage. Now let us look at one simple diagram which shows how EMS can be applied in a particular organization. Energy management, it is carried out in 4 basic steps. First one, plan. Second one, do. Check and act. So when we apply these 4 steps, we get results which makes one particular organization an energy efficient organization. The first step, plan. It has 2 steps. Firstly, target setting. So it plans on how much energy to be conserved, how to minimize the energy use. And after that, an action plan is prepared. During the planning process, the action plan gives a way forward on what to do. So after the action plan is being prepared, then we move to second phase, or the second step, that is do. So in the second step, it is about practices. Whatever action plan has, based on the plan, some methods are developed. For instance, what kind of equipment to be used. After that, what is the amount of energy consumed? So during that second step, shift of equipment is done, and then check on the energy consumption is done. After that, the third step, which we call as check. In the third step, it is one phase where analysis is done. It's something like physical verification of the bills, actually. The energy consumption before implementation of the plan and after implementation of the plan is compared. The bills are compared. After that, verification is done, basically, like what kind of equipment are better. For instance, initially if we were using the incandescent bulbs, and then if a shift is made to LED bulbs, then during the check phase, the energy consumption of the two different bulbs can be compared. After that, the last one is act. So the last phase is one important phase where review is done. So whatever planned activities were implemented, first thing in the last phase, that is in the act phase, the efficiency is checked. Second one, the target setting and the output is compared. A review is done on whether the target is met. And if the target is not met, then they come up with the analysis and some suggestions on how some improvement can be brought in. And once the act phase is over, then they come up with a report which has the detail about the performance and also a list of recommendations which can be again continued in the next phase. So as this process is cyclic, every time the process is completed, then there is always a place for improvement. That's all about the process. Now let us look at where we can apply those processes. EMS is not just about applying those principles, steps in big industries or organizations. We can apply the principle or the process at our homes. Household level application can be done, or institutions where energy consumption is very high. Applying this can help the institutions decrease energy consumption. In other words, it can also minimize the financial burdens. So application of EMS is not limited to just one place. It has multiple applications. Children, we saw a lot of things. We saw how to conserve energy. We also talked about how to manage things. Now finally, there's one important topic left. That is green technology. It is one modern technology coming out, which again aims at conservation of energy and increasing energy efficiency. So what basically is green technology? So green technology is development and application of equipment which can help in conserving natural resources and also minimize the impact of human activity on the environment. So to understand green technologies, let us look at two examples. The first example is cogeneration, or combined heat and power generation, which can be abbreviated as CHP. And the second one is fuel efficient automobiles, or in other words, hybrid automobiles. So firstly, we have two ways of energy generation. The first one on the top is cogeneration, and second one down there, it is separate production. If you look at the top one, the energy input is 100%, whereas if you look below, the energy input is high, it is 158. Now let's look at output. In both the cases, electricity produced is 44%, whereas heat generated it is 43%. But what is important here is the energy lost. If you look up there in the first case, in cogeneration, 13% of the energy is lost. Whereas when we come down in separate production, then it is somewhere above 70%. Now let us compare. Input in one case is quite high. Whenever we are producing the two different energies in a separate manner, then input is very high and the loss is very high. Whereas in cogeneration, the input is less and loss is also less, which means cogeneration is more efficient as compared to separate production of two different forms of energy. So that's one example of green technology. Now let us look at the second one, that is fuel efficient automobiles. At this age, we have always seen hybrid vehicles coming out. So how is a hybrid car better in terms of fuel consumption as compared to the normal car? Now let us look at the fuel efficient automobiles or the hybrid cars. On my right, I have one schematic representation of how a hybrid car works, and the other side I have for a normal car. Firstly, if we look at a normal car, fossil fuel is used to run the car, and when the car is running, of course, there will be brake applied. In the braking process, a lot of energy is produced in the form of heat. All that energy is lost. It is dissipated to the surrounding. So there is no use of that particular energy, a form of energy which can be very useful. Hybrid car makes use of that form of energy. So if you look here, it uses fossil fuel to run the car. And once the car is running, in the braking process, huge amount of heat is produced. That heat is used by the generator to produce electricity, and the electricity is stored in the batteries. Once the battery is charged, the car will automatically shift from fossil fuel to electricity, and it will continue to run using electricity. And once it shifts, the use of fossil fuel is minimized. So when we look at, if we compare the two, what we see here is the fossil fuel consumption is very high in this case because it is not using the heat energy produced in the process. So as we are done with green technology, now in general, let us look at the advantages of all those approaches, the energy conservation in general and green technology. So first thing, it helps in saving energy. Second one is, it minimizes or it lessens the financial burden at home and in large organizations. Third one, it also promotes the sustainable use of natural resources. We are also actually minimizing the impact on the environment. So it helps us to curb with some of the issues of climate change. So as we have studied a lot of things, now I have few important activities. First thing, prepare a plan to reduce energy consumption at home. Energy saving devices. And ultimately, as I talked about green technology, there are many more which we might not have heard about, which we might not have seen. So I want you to do one small internet search and explore on some more technologies which we don't see around. So that's all for today's lesson. Thank you. We will meet in the next session.